The rule had already been broken. A security guard froze as a man he wasn't supposed to stop walked past him anyway. Cameras were still rolling. 70 people on the soundstage knew what that meant. Someone was about to be thrown out. John Wayne turned in his chair. At 66, untouchable and in total control, he had banned all visitors from his set. Not a suggestion. A command. The man crossing the floor didn't slow. It was Clint Eastwood. Uninvited. Leather creaked as Wayne shifted his weight. Boots planted. Hat brim low, eyes hidden in shadow. August heat pressed down through the rafters, dust hanging in the lights like held breath. No visitors. No press. No exceptions. And now the distance between them was closing. Clint Eastwood moved with the economy of someone used to walking alone. 43. Jacket unbuttoned. No entourage. No smile to soften the trespass. Each step shortened the distance everyone else refused to close. This was the man Wayne had dismissed in public. The one whose westerns he'd called un-American. The one he'd accused of turning killers into heroes and heroes into ghosts. Crew members glanced at each other, then away as if eye contact alone might make them complicit. A boom operator eased his grip. Someone killed a fan. The silence sharpened. Wayne stood. The movement alone shifted the room. He was still big, still filling space, still carrying the gravity of every frontier myth he'd ever embodied. When he faced Eastwood, they were the same height but not the same shape, broad oak against steel wire. Old guard and new, squared off under hot lights. "This is a closed set," Wayne said. The voice was low, rough, final. Eastwood stopped 10 feet out. Far enough to move. Close enough to matter. He didn't raise his hands. Didn't apologize. He reached inside his jacket. A few people stepped back. Glass caught the light as he brought it out. A bottle. Heavy. Clear. Top shelf tequila, the kind Wayne kept for friends, not interruptions. Eastwood held it there, arms steady, offering without advancing. "I read your letter," he said. "Come." Measured. I didn't answer. Thought this deserved more than ink. Wayne didn't take the bottle. He studied Eastwood's face instead, the lines that came from squinting into sun and silence, not from smiling for approval. The power in the room shifted, not away from Wayne but inward, tightening around a choice only he could make. What happened next would decide whether this was a trespass, or a reckoning. Wayne's eyes dropped to the bottle, then back to the man holding it. For a beat, no one spoke. The lights hummed. Dust drifted. Somewhere off stage, a hammer tapped once and stopped, as if the building itself had decided to listen. John Wayne took a step forward. Not aggressive. Deliberate. He stopped close enough that Eastwood could smell tobacco and leather. "You've got nerve," Wayne said. "Walking onto my set like this." "I figured you'd respect a straight line," Clint Eastwood said. He didn't blink. "I came to say it to your face." Wayne's mouth tightened. For a second it looked like the old fury might surface. The public feud, the interviews, the letter that had gone unanswered. Instead, he exhaled through his nose and reached out. His hand swallowed the neck of the bottle. Glass clinked against a ring. The room loosened by a fraction. "You drink tequila?" Wayne asked. "When the occasion calls for it." Wayne huffed, a sound halfway to a laugh. He turned his head toward the edge of the set. "Get me 2 glasses. Then louder to the room, "Take 5. No one argued. Cables were set down. Lenses capped. The soundstage emptied in a shuffle of relief and disbelief, leaving 2 chairs under the lights and the smell of dust warming again. Wayne poured. The liquid flashed silver, then settled. He didn't toast. He drank. Eastwood followed, the burn pulling his jaw tight for a second before he set the glass down. "You said some things," Wayne said, eyes on the rim. "About the West. About heroes." "I did," Eastwood said. "You said some things about mine." Wayne nodded once. "I don't like your pictures. Too dark. The man rides in, makes a mess, rides out." He finally looked up. "That's not how I see it." Eastwood didn't argue. He reached into the quiet instead. "I grew up on yours. Stagecoach. Red River. The Searchers. That's the road I learned to walk." He paused. "Everything I do, especially the parts you hate, comes from what you built." The words landed without flourish. Wayne studied him not as a rival now, but as a craftsman weighing another's hands. The anger drained. Something steadier took its place. "You're not making bad pictures," Wayne said at last. "You're making different ones." Eastwood nodded. "That's all I needed to hear." Wayne poured again. This time he smiled. "We don't agree," he said. "But the Western matters." Outside the lights, the crew waited, unaware that the line between trespass and permission had just been crossed, and that the next hour would change how two legends carried the same myth in opposite directions. No one knows what was said after the second pour. The soundstage stayed closed longer than scheduled. A grip leaned against a wall outside, ear pressed to nothing. Time stretched. When the door finally opened, the first thing people noticed wasn't what they heard, but what they saw. John Wayne came out laughing. Not polite. Not practiced. A real laugh that lifted his shoulders and broke through the weight he'd carried all morning. Clint Eastwood followed a step behind, looser now, eyes brighter, jacket slung open like it belonged there. Wayne walked him to the edge of the set himself. No assistant. No buffer. He shook Eastwood's hand once, firm, brief, and leaned in to say something too quiet for anyone else to catch. Eastwood nodded. Just once. Then he turned and left the way he'd come in, alone. The workday resumed, but the air had changed. Wayne moved differently. He waited between takes. He joked with the crew. When a line stumbled, he waved it off instead of cutting it down. Whatever had been said over that bottle didn't settle an argument. It settled something older. They hadn't agreed. They never would. Wayne believed the Western should lift people up. His heroes stood tall, shouldered the burden, carried civilization forward. He saw the frontier as a proving ground where right and wrong mattered, where men became better by choosing the harder path. Eastwood saw the cost. The blood that didn't wash off. The towns that stayed broken after the writer left. He believed the West was violent, compromised, unfinished, and that pretending otherwise was its own kind of lie. But somewhere between those positions, respect took root. After that day, Wayne stopped criticizing Eastwood in public. When reporters pushed, he deflected. "We make different pictures," he'd say. Nothing more. The feud that had fed headlines dried up overnight. Years later, when asked what changed, Wayne didn't talk about films. He talked about the visit. About a man who walked onto a closed set without permission and said what needed saying to his face. "I respect guts," he said. "Always have." In 1979, Wayne was gone. Eastwood attended the memorial quietly, sitting near the back, staying after the room thinned out and the cameras packed away. No speech. No statement. Just time given where it mattered. Because legacies aren't inherited through agreement. They're carried forward by men willing to stand in the same room, tell different truths, and still recognize the weight of what came before. 13 years passed. The West aged. So did the men who once defined it. In 1992, Clint Eastwood rode back in with a story that didn't ask permission. Unforgiven opened in gray light. Mud instead of dust. Rain instead of sun. An old gunfighter bent by years and memory, hands stiff, eyes tired. Violence didn't roar, it lingered. Every shot landed like a debt finally collected. No white hats. No clean exits. The myth was still there. Just carried weight now. Eastwood didn't explain it. He let the camera wait. He let silence do the work. He let the legend age on screen the way men do in life. Unevenly, honestly. Critics argued. Audiences stayed. The film won everything that mattered, not because it replaced the Old West, but because it remembered it well enough to tell the truth. There were dedications. One to Sergio Leone, who taught him how to see. One to Don Siegel, who taught him how to move. And one that never appeared on the screen. Because some acknowledgments don't need ink. They live in choices. In restraint. In a refusal to mock what came before. The film works because the audience remembers the West as it once was, bright, upright, certain. It works because somewhere in the dark, the shadow of John Wayne still stands tall, steady enough to measure the fall. Wayne never saw the film. He didn't need to. The conversation had already happened under hot lights and held breath, over glass and honesty. Two men had named the same thing from opposite ends and left it intact. In the final moments of Unforgiven, a rider disappears into weather. No triumph. No judgment. Just distance swallowing a man who knows exactly what he's done. The camera doesn't chase him. Lets him go. That's how legacies survive. Not by agreement. Not by surrender. But by respect strong enough to carry a myth forward without breaking it. If this story stayed with you, subscribe, for the moments that didn't make headlines but decided what we remember.